What I mostly do is I teach in the schools. So all of last year and the previous part of the year, I taught life skills classes at my local high school. Most of my classes are very large. So my Form 4 class, for example, I have one class of 86 students, which is not manageable for me. And so the school worked with me to split that class into two different groups, which worked really well. Mostly I find that the students know the answers to the questions, to where does HIV come from, how can you protect yourself, but then when it comes to actually applying that knowledge in a more realistic setting, it's very difficult for them to do that. So a lot of what we do, we review the basics on HIV, and then we talk about how they can apply that to their everyday lives, or how they can apply those facts to making decisions to make themselves healthier. Some of the challenges, I guess, that I faced in the schools is that my teaching style and the way that I learned growing up in schools in the U.S. is very different than how Swazi schools work and how Swazi schools are taught, and how children are used to learning in Swazi schools. For example, in schools here it's mostly lecture, and I want to do small group work, or I want to do smaller activities, or have them do something creatively to use what they've learned, and they just stare at me blankly because they've never done that before. So it took a while for me to get them used to that. After a few weeks, they learned what my teaching style was, and they learned what my expectations were of them, and it's worked. So coming into my Peace Corps experience, teaching is not something that I thought I could do. And it's not something I have any experience in or any training in. And a lot of the material actually was something that was new to me coming here. I knew a little bit about HIV, but I didn't know how to teach it. I had a lot of questions myself. One thing that really bothered me coming into the school was corporal punishment, and the fact that the only sort of punishment or the only sort of discipline that the children in the school ever get is beating. And so I have had to develop other ways of disciplining the students, such as having them come up to the front of the class, or making the ones that are being disruptive answer the questions for me.
So earlier in my service, most of my work was at the local high school, which is technically in the neighboring community, but that doesn't really matter. As long as you can get introduced, everything is fine. And usually it's pretty easy to get on teaching English. You're a native English speaker, they will want you, rest assured. We come from sort of an empirical, scientific perspective in which statistics and the numbers are really a big deal. And the Swazis don't see it that way. The numbers really don't resonate with them. So you need to find other ways of communicating those concepts. It's really fun to see them get hold of an English concept, or to expose them to something they're unfamiliar with. Like, I showed them some pictures of London the other week. I was helping them with their listening, and I showed them the pictures from the article, which was about London. And they were fascinated, you know? You have to realize that as an American, you're going to be sort of a small celebrity to them, and you can play that up, like, capitalize on that. Also, if you bother to insert humor or other interesting things into your lecture, they will like you more.
I'm basically going to be working with another teacher, which I think is a great idea. We're doing listening comprehension, and we're reading like Newsweeks, and then we're going to do like a quiz afterwards to see how much of what I was reading they understand. Because their final tests in Form 5, their senior years, is all in English, and sometimes they don't have the luxury of having a teacher speak English all the time. We're going to a school in my area, the school that I graduated from, and we're going to connect it with the school that I'm teaching with now, and we're just going to do like pen pals, and that way I can correct their grammar, and we can go through things, and they can ask lots of questions to the high school students in America, which they're super excited about. And then also the kids in America are really excited to write, like the high school kids in America are really excited to write the Swazi students.